After a rough breakup, I decided to dive into the world of online dating. Swiping through profiles became a nightly routine, and it wasn't long before I matched with Maria. Her photos showed her laughing in vibrant parks and enjoying cozy coffee shops, and her bio hinted at a quirky sense of humor. I was drawn to her. Our conversations flowed easily, filled with playful banter and shared interests. Maria seemed genuine, and I found myself looking forward to her messages more than I expected. After a couple of weeks, we decided it was time to meet in person. She suggested a quaint cafe downtown, known for its eclectic vibe. I felt a mixture of excitement and nerves as I prepared for our date. The day of our meeting arrived, and I dressed carefully, wanting to make a good impression. When I walked into the cafe, I spotted her immediately. Maria sat at a small table, her dark hair framing her face as she scrolled through her phone. She looked up and smiled, and my heart skipped a beat. We spent hours talking, sharing stories and laughter over coffee and pastries. But as the sun began to set, I noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, an unease that seemed to wash over her. She kept glancing at the door, as if waiting for someone. I asked if everything was okay, and she brushed it off with a smile, but her laughter didn't reach her eyes. After our coffee, she suggested a walk through the nearby park. The twilight air was cool and refreshing, and I agreed. As we strolled, the conversation continued, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Do you ever feel like someone is watching you?" Maria asked suddenly, her gaze fixed on the shadows beneath the trees. I laughed nervously. "Is this a horror movie plot?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No, I mean it. I felt it lately, like I'm being followed." "Maybe you're just being paranoid," I said, trying to lighten the mood. But as we walked deeper into the park, I started to feel it too. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Every rustle of leaves felt like a whisper, and every shadow seemed to stretch ominously. Maria stopped abruptly, her face paling. "I think we should go back," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Okay," I replied, my unease mirroring hers. We turned to head back, but the path seemed longer, and the night felt darker. As we approached the cafe again, Maria's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, her expression shifting as she read a message. "I need to take this," she said, stepping a few feet away. I watched her, my unease growing. I could see her typing furiously, her brow furrowing. After a moment, she looked up, her face pale. "I need to go," she said, her voice shaky. "What? Why?" I asked, confusion flooding me. "There's someone I need to get away from." Before I could respond, she turned and hurried down a side path, disappearing into the darkness. Panic gripped me. "Maria, wait!" I called after her. But my voice echoed back, swallowed by the night. I sprinted after her, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows felt alive, closing in around me. I called her name again, but there was no answer. Finally, I reached the edge of the park and stopped, breathless. The streetlights flickered ominously, illuminating the empty street. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw a figure standing in the distance, watching me. My pulse quickened. The figure was tall and cloaked in shadow. I couldn't make out any features, but the feeling of dread washed over me. "Maria!" I shouted, hoping she was nearby. But the figure took a step forward and I froze. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn in, like a moth to a flame. Then my phone buzzed. I fumbled to check it and my stomach dropped. It was a message from Maria. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want you involved. Stay away." Before I could process it, the figure took another step closer, and I turned to run, my heart racing. I sprinted down the street, the sound of footsteps echoing behind me. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment, slamming the door shut and locking it tight. I collapsed against the door, panting. Hours later, I lay in bed, still shaken. Just as I was starting to drift off, My phone buzzed again. I picked it up, heart pounding. It was a video message from an unknown number. With trembling hands, I clicked play. The screen flickered to life and my stomach dropped. It was Maria, but her eyes were wide with terror. "Help me," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "He's here." The video cut to static and the screen went black. I stared at the darkness, the weight of the night settling in. I had ventured into the world of online dating, but what I found was far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. When I signed up for the dating app, I expected the usual mix of awkward small talk and forgettable conversations. After a few weeks of swiping and chatting, I matched with a girl named Sarah. Her profile radiated warmth, pictures of her hiking in the mountains, laughing with friends, and holding a golden retriever. I was intrigued, and our chats quickly turned from casual to engaging. We shared our favorite horror movies, exchanged playlists, and talked about our dreams for the future. Sarah suggested we meet at a local coffee shop, and I felt a rush of excitement. Finally, a connection that seemed real. The day arrived, and I nervously checked my appearance in the mirror, reassuring myself that I looked presentable. I arrived at the cafe, a quaint little place filled with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. As I waited, I couldn't help but notice how the other patrons seemed to watch me. Their eyes lingered, and a chill ran down my spine. When Sarah walked in, she was even more beautiful than her pictures. Her smile lit up the room, and for a moment, the world felt right. We ordered our drinks and settled into a cozy corner. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and shared stories. But as the afternoon wore on, I noticed something strange. He glanced at her phone often, her expression shifting from excitement to unease. "Sorry, it's just my brother," she explained, forcing a smile. I dismissed it, chalking it up to nerves. As we finished our drinks, Sarah suggested we take a walk in the nearby park. It was a beautiful day, and I was eager to prolong our time together. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground as we strolled. But as we walked, I felt an odd sensation, a prickling on the back of my neck as if someone was watching us. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, noticing my sudden tension. "Yeah, just a bit. Paranoid, I guess," I admitted, trying to shake it off. Then, out of nowhere, her phone rang. The caller ID flashed Mom, but Sarah's face twisted in a way I couldn't understand. She glanced at me, her expression a mix of fear and anger, and declined the call. "I don't want to talk to her," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the walk felt strained, and I could sense the shift in her demeanor. Suddenly, she stopped walking. "I need to tell you something," she said, her eyes darting around nervously. "You're not the only one I've been talking to. I've met a few other guys through the app, but—" Her voice trailed off. "But what?" I pressed, my heart racing. She took a deep breath. "There's one who won't leave me alone. He's been messaging me constantly. I thought it was just a phase, but he's been following me." Her voice trembled. Before I could respond, I felt a presence behind me. Turning slowly, I saw a figure lurking at the edge of the path, a man in a dark hoodie, his face obscured. My heart dropped as he took a step forward. "Sarah," I said, panic rising, "we need to go, now." But as I reached for her hand, she pulled away, her expression shifting into something unrecognizable, cold and calculating. "I'm sorry," she said, a twisted smile creeping across her lips. "You were just too nice." In an instant, the man lunged toward me, and everything went black. When I finally came to, I was alone in the park, disoriented and shaken. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I fumbled to check it, only to find a message from Sarah. "Thanks for the date. Hope you enjoy the next one." The dread settled in as I realized that the app was still open on my phone, her profile glowing back at me. I had swiped right into a nightmare. After a messy breakup, I decided to escape to Brazil for a fresh start. The vibrant culture, beautiful landscapes, and bustling nightlife were just what I needed. During my first few days in Rio, I downloaded a dating app, eager to meet someone new. That's when I matched with a girl named Anna. Her profile was captivating, a mix of gorgeous selfies and pictures of her exploring the city. Her bio radiated enthusiasm for life, and I was instantly drawn in. We began chatting, and our conversations flowed easily. Anna was funny and adventurous, and I felt a genuine connection. After a week of texting, we agreed to meet at a lively cafe near Copacabana Beach. When I arrived, the place buzzed with laughter and music, but I was focused on Anna. When she walked in, I was struck by her beauty. Long, dark hair, bright eyes, and an infectious smile. As we talked, the chemistry was undeniable. But as the sun began to set, I noticed a change in her demeanor. She seemed distracted, her gaze flicking toward the entrance. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to mask my concern. "Yeah, just a friend I'm not sure about," she replied, her voice slightly shaky. I shrugged it off, thinking it was just nerves. We continued our date, but the tension lingered. Later, as we walked along the beach, I spotted a man leaning against a palm tree watching us intently. His presence felt menacing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was there for Anna. I pointed him out, and her expression turned serious. "That's just someone I know," she said, but her tone was anxious. We quickly left the beach, and I tried to change the subject, but her thoughts seemed elsewhere. As we reached a quieter street, Anna finally opened up. "I have to tell you something. I have a boyfriend," she said, her eyes darting around as if she expected him to appear. "He's involved in some dangerous stuff, drugs, violence. I'm trying to break it off, but he doesn't let go easily." A chill ran down my spine. The man I had seen earlier had to be him. "Anna, you need to be careful. This sounds serious," I urged, trying to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Stay away from her." My heart raced. I looked up to find Anna pale, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to go, now!" We rushed into a nearby alley, but it felt like the walls were closing in. I could hear footsteps behind us, growing louder. I turned to Anna, but she was frozen in place. "What do we do?" I whispered, panic rising. "Just keep running," she said, grabbing my hand. We darted through the narrow streets, weaving through crowds and desperate for safety. As we turned a corner, I glanced back to see the man following us, his expression dark and determined. We finally reached a crowded bar, bursting through the door. I pulled Anna inside, our breathing heavy and frantic. I scanned the room, trying to spot the man, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Are you okay?" I asked, still holding her hand. Anna's face was pale. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another message: "You can't hide from him." A shiver ran down my spine. I realized this was no ordinary date. My heart raced as I looked into Anna's eyes, realizing I might have just stepped into a nightmare from which there was no escape.